welcome to The New Normal. I'm your host, Lisa Davis, aka Litecoin Lisa, and I got to connect with an old friend there at the Beyond Mystic conference, Ken Swartz, and with C60. You guys know Purple Power. That's always the go-to brand for us. It's the way it's manufactured and processed. Gives you like the highest quality for that carbon C60, and we'll talk more with him about that process. But wanted to catch up with him about the conference and some of the high points of that. And then he blessed me with a little skincare while I was there. So we want to talk about those new products as well and let you guys know about them. And of course, I have a little discount code that I can let you guys in on. So we'll do all that and more right after this. Give us a like, share the video, and we'll be right back with Ken from C60 right after this. Welcome back, Ken. It's great to have you.
Good to be on.
Yeah, I was so great running into you in the conference. You know, my mother adores you. You gave her precious dog extra years on, it's like it would live to be almost like 20 years old or something insane, because it was having like liver failure or renal failure, and she started dumping the C60 into this dog, and the vet couldn't believe it. But it was definitely a miracle worker for her. So you're a family favorite for sure.
Good to hear.
I know you hear stories like that all the time. I mean, whether it's dogs, loved ones, even, of course, you know, your own family members and people that you work with, everything from helping with eyesight, brain fog, just it's amazing, like all the different things that body systems at C60, and I guess so much of it is, from what I understand, the way that it helps the mitochondria, and it helps with those old senescent cells. Is that right? The zombie cells die off and kind of clean out, do a little spring cleaning. So can you kind of talk to us a little more about that system? And
Yeah, well, C60 is what there's 4 big antioxidants that your mitochondria really need to function well. One's CoQ10. You should probably be supplementing for that, especially if you got a little gray hair. Another one's glutathione. That's one they now have like liposomal and other delivery methods, you know, skin-based delivery methods to get the glutathione in you. But there's really been nothing for superoxide dismutase and catalase. Okay. And that's kind of what C60 does. C60 is a mimic of those. It does the same job those do, and they're really important in your mitochondria. So when you take C60, it'll pass your gut barrier or blood-brain barrier. It'll go into the cells by endocytosis, then into the mitochondria, where it acts as like an SOD mimic. Now, when you're young, it's probably not such a big deal. But as we get older, our antioxidant levels that our cells make drop. And so the mitochondria, they have their own, they're like little organelles in the cells. And depending on how much work that cell does, depends on how much mitochondria. Like the nerve cells do a lot of work. So they're almost like half mitochondria by volume because they need a lot of energy. Same with muscle cells. So so what happens is that mitochondria have their own DNA, and if they don't have enough SOD and catalase and the CoQ10 and glutathione, they kind of have to turn themselves down in their operations. And but once they get C60, they can turn themselves back up to a higher level, and so the mitochondria make ATP, the energy molecule of the cell, and that's really important. And they also make pregnenolone, which is the precursor molecule of pretty much all the hormones. So you get your energy levels go up, your hormones level goes up, and your body just works better.
Well, and that was one thing I had experienced myself, because you know, I've been taking C60 for years now, and my coffee, the cinnamon one's my favorite. It's great in your coffee. But my doctor had taken me off some of my thyroid medicine, and she was like, your thyroid doesn't usually fix itself. Like, what's going on here? And so I was trying to explain all of it to her, and she's just like, that sounds a little too strange to me, but I sent her all the information and told her, the best thing you can do is, once again, you can't tell people, you have to show them and let them educate themselves. So your website does have a lot of great information on it. I've got the website running across the bottom. You guys, you can go to shop c60 .com, and there is education on the website as well, which I think is a great tool and resource to point people to also. So good stuff. Good stuff.
Yeah, a lot of it has to do with those senescent cells, as you mentioned before.
Mhm.
It's just as cells get older, they have shortened telomeres, and or really damaged DNA, and when they can't really reproduce or divide anymore, and usually there's processes by which those cells are eliminated and then they're replaced, but a lot of times they just kind of hang out, and they're kind of like zombie cells. They go into the fermentation mode, which is about as 1/20th as effective as like the oxygen burning that we normally do. And they also they ferment. They make all kinds of toxic chemicals that are kind of poisoning the cells around them. And so as you get a lot of toxic, you get a senescent cells in your body, it kind of puts a heavy burden on. And usually what happens is, the DNA is damaged. So, and the DNA the cell will actually stop the production of antioxidants like SOD and catalase. And so the mitochondria will have to go into that fermentation mode as well. But when you take C60, it goes into the mitochondria and those senescent cells and turns them back on.
Okay.
And then they send messages to the nuclear DNA, the main DNA of the cell, and they won't get the right message back. So they they cause apoptosis, which is programmed cell death. And so it wipes out all those senescent cells, and then your body's stimulated to make more stem cells to replace those missing ones. And that's kind of, we've had lots of people with the thyroid, right? Because your thyroid's not working.
Yeah.
It's because it's got all kinds of damage in senescent cells, because somewhere along the line it got damaged. And so what happens with the C60 is the C60 wipes out those senescent cells, and they're being replaced by stem cells. And a stem cell is like a baby cell. It can do all the jobs that, a thyroid cell used to do. And and it usually takes a long time. It doesn't happen overnight, but, we've had people get off there, but it's usually 6 months to sometimes up to 2 years. You'll see a lot of that. Like my macular degeneration went away, but it took 7 months to do it. Right. So anything you've had for a long time is going to take a while. I mean,
Right.
people will get better energy, better mental focus, because that's your mitochondria are turning back on and doing all that. But then the process of, of growing new cells, stem cells, and replacing it and building up, that's a much longer process. And it just takes time.
Yeah. Even my back, I had, issues with my disc in my back. And over time, I feel like that's improved. But like you said, that's been a much longer process, all of that. But it's been really interesting. So I'm excited to see, with the skincare and all that, because I am over 50 and all those things, kick in. And so, but I have noticed just in, a couple weeks of being home, that I feel like under my eyes it has improved with the eye cream. And I remember when you guys first started this, because I had already been mixing the C60 oil with my just night cream and my regular skincare, thinking that it might help. And then you guys started doing skincare, or that you were just starting to create it. And so I know this was kind of a kickoff a few years ago, but it's really seems like it's a really hot product. At the conference, there was a lot of interest in your booth, I saw. So how's that going for the company? What kind of interest are you seeing online?
Well, it's going really well. In fact, the very first human study of C60 was they put it in a cream for Japanese women, and they found that putting on their face, it reduced lines and wrinkles in Japanese women. So it comes from a good scientific background, the very first study. And we had, as you want, I think you have the youth renewal cream.
Yeah.
And it was all, but these were all developed by our CEO, Jess McNaughton. And she basically had her favorite creams that she liked. And we went to a formulator in Florida, and we kind of back engineered them and then put in a base of C60. So like the youth renewal cream has all kinds of great stuff for your eyes, the copper peptides, which,
Yes.
encourage skin growth. And there's a whole bunch of other things. It would take, quite a few minutes, to read all the ingredients, but it smells good. It does a great job. People have talked about it. And we also have an anti-gravity face serum.
Yeah, I
It's
think that's what I have, the face
yep,
serum.
yep, and then on the now that's also C60 skin.
Oh, C60 skin. Okay,
Yeah,
maybe.
that's like for the rest of the body too. So we have 3 different products. We'll have to send you the other product.
Oh, wonderful.
We had kind of limited amounts there. I only had 1 suitcase to go to bring for that, and there it all emptied out.
Well, I ended up even using this C60 skin on my hair, but one of
Oh,
the last days because I didn't have all
mhm,
my products with me because,
mhm.
traveling and all that. And it was great on the ends of my hair, with traveling and all that stuff. So I was like, oh,
Yep, and rub to the top of the head, it's been found to increase skin growth or hair
oh,
growth up on your head.
okay, hair
And
growth.
also anybody that takes C60, you'll notice that that hair grows faster and your nails grow faster. That's like one thing you really notice is the nail growth goes way up. But that just means that the stem cells are turning over. And that's part of what we learned is, one of the reasons that because it creates all those new stem cells.
Mhm.
And then those stem cells are there to, like, as your face skin turns over, which pretty rapidly, you have more stem cells, so then it turns over more completely, and the lines and wrinkles go down. So that's just kind of the whole process. But
That makes sense. Yeah.
yes, that's it. It doesn't happen overnight, but it will happen. And people, there's just so many people that like the results of that. Of
Yeah.
course, for those of you who don't know, we originally started the products with it's an internal. C60 has no solubility in water, so it really started as an internal one. I used it as a radiation protectant, and it basically got rid of my macular degeneration, taking it internally. But you can also use it externally because it works there great too. A lot of people have aches and pains in the joints, especially on your hands. People have found it's really been effective there. And,
Oh, okay.
yeah, and also for people, other people put it with DMSO and then drive it deep into knees and hips and stuff, and they find that it's things. In fact, that's kind of one of the things where they discovered stem cells, is they gave rabbits. They were doing scientific studies, and they gave rabbits arthritis, and so then they were injecting C60 into the rabbit's joints, and figuring because C60 is a great anti-inflammatory, by the way, because it's an
Okay.
antioxidant. It reduces inflammation because a lot of the a lot of inflammation is caused by neutrophils, and they use those superoxides as like little bullets to take out the bacteria. Yeah, but that can also cause collateral damage. So if you have C60 there, it really reduces the inflammation. So it functions, just everything functions a little better. And so when they actually sacrificed the rabbits to look at the joints, they found that the cartilage had actually regrown.
Wow.
So that's kind of one of the things. So you literally over time, those stem cells will regrow cartilage in animals and also in people. So because a lot of people talk about how your back, your disc is getting a
Yeah.
little better and everything. It's pretty common in a lot of people. It's won't happen overnight, but it can happen. And so we've had people 30% kidney failure. The nephrologist tells them, oh, it's just going to get worse till you need a kidney transplant. They take C60, 3 months later, they go in to see their nephrologist and they have 100% function.
Wow.
And
I
it's
mean,
really,
anything to turn that clock,
yeah,
even if you're just turning it, go in the opposite direction, I mean, that's amazing. That's really great to hear. Yeah, mom's putting in, oh wait, fix my knee. I'm gonna go get some DMS. Oh wait, rub it in my knee. Yeah. Um, that's great to hear. Yeah, all these are alternative options. And I think we're seeing more and more in that, people looking for alternative options and, or being more open to it, especially after, this giant betrayal by Big Pharma after what we've all been through. So, um,
yeah, I jammed up a knee doing some sports stuff. And,
mm,
the doctor said, oh, no, you're going to have a surgery and all that. But instead, I just used a lot of C60. And today, it's just perfectly fine, no pain at all. In fact, it works better than the other knee.
oh,
So,
wow.
but uh, but yeah, so I didn't have to go through all that. It didn't. It took a while. It was like 2 years for full healing. But now it's fully functional knee again. When they were going to say, oh no, we've got to do this, that, and the other thing, and it's just it's one of those good alternatives that you have. I mean, there's some things you have to do, and C60 isn't a magic pill, by the way. You still have to eat healthy, get exercise, proper sleep, drink clean water, you know, proper supplementation, because there's so many things in our diet that we don't get today. Magnesium and vitamin D and vitamin K and CoQ10, all of those things. I mean, it's C60's not like magic bullet. It's just one tool in the toolkit for good health,
Yeah.
but it's an important one.
It's great to have one more thing though to add to it, and then if we can get back to, watching them in Utah banning fluoride now, and then if we can get, as you
Mhm.
mentioned, all the minerals in our water, or in our get the glyphosate off
Yeah,
of our
that would
food,
be let's Robert Kennedy Jr. take spraying glyphosate off grains. That would be good.
yeah, yeah, that would be good. That would be good for sure. Well, so what were some of your favorite parts about the conference? What did you get to hear very many? I know
Oh
you
yeah,
were,
I got to, yeah, because everybody went in to see the speakers, so we
so
would,
then you got
yeah,
to,
we people off the,
cool.
people would come off the tables and we just go to the back and listen to
Yeah.
it. I liked Andy Scheckman's talk. That was really good. He really talked about the upside of silver, and it's, I don't know, what is it, 80 to 1, 90 to 1 right now, the ratio of silver to gold. Usually, in back in the day when the dollar, they had silver dollars and they had gold dollars, and then the ratio was 20 to 1. And now
Yeah.
it's like 80 to 90 to 1. And so, because of the way things have been set up, and a Bix Weir also was there, as people may know, and he's he is the silver guy, and he also talked a whole lot about the suppression and how they do it. And part of the thing is that the dollar, the value of the dollar is perceived as how it is with precious metals. And so they can naked short the market. That means they just create money out of thin air, paper dollar, paper gold, paper silver, billions of ounces, right, out of thin air that don't exist, and then they can use it to bid the price down or bid down the actual physical silver. But that game's that game's coming to an end because people have figured it out. And so,
Maybe this weekend. There's
yeah.
this whole silver squeeze that's going on this weekend, and there's huge accounts that are standing for delivery on the COMEX. And apparently, like, I mean, the news on Twitter and watching all these accounts post that they're standing for delivery and what's going to happen and come Monday. And I don't know. I know it hit over $35 um, on some of the exchanges. It wasn't across the board, I guess, or on all of them, but it'll be interesting to see what happens on Monday for sure.
Well, they could try to. They could, they've been naked shorting it for so long, but it's just gotten to the point, because part of it's the strategic metal, and they want to keep the price down and all that kind of stuff. But there's just, it's, yeah, because people are, that's the, see, if you or I tried to do that on the COMEX, they would just laugh at us,
Yeah.
and they just force us to settle with dollars. But you can't do that with foreign buyers. They take you to international court and stuff, and COMEX would lose. So if you're a foreign buyer, especially a foreign nation, and you demand delivery, they have to deliver. And so they just drain. I mean, eventually they're just going to run out of physical silver too. They're scraping the bottom of the barrel right now, and it's, and they've had the same problem with gold. They've been importing all the gold from London that they can. They've even shut down the London gold market. How long will it be before the London silver market and other such things shut down? It's just a matter of time.
Yeah, it's really exciting. I know Cliff even tweeted today, I think, an obtainium is going to happen, which he had always talked about that, and that was always in his data. But we kind of were like, but when? And he's talking about like this weekend, so it's pretty exciting to see all that happen. I needed like 30 more days. I'm trying to sell my house, but you know,
Well, I think things will hold together. I was listening to the crypto future forecasters.
oh, okay, yeah,
And
yeah,
they
it's
saw
all
there was, they actually saw that earthquake in Myanmar,
they
Burma.
did.
Yeah, they saw the building collapse. That was a solid hit on their part, but they didn't see anything major really happening this month. So
Okay.
nothing, they didn't see any, just the typical, the typical retarded stuff that happens. The wars, the bombings, the rest of the stuff, but nothing major like that. So I wouldn't worry too much about next month. It seemed to be pretty mild actually,
I
relative
don't
to some of the.
know though. Janine, when we were at the conference, Janine did that stack or that Kachina
Mhm.
uh, card pull or whatever, and she pulled the tower for 5 weeks, days, months, and to me that lined up with Trump's presidential action that that moves us into the merit-based system. And then we're watching, we heard about the printers, the money printing machines and all that. And now we're watching failure, lack of trust in the dollar, and the bonds are not being bought. the treasury bonds and all that. And there is this huge, failure of faith in the dollar, which is not going to go well for,
Oh, well, that's good for silver and other things. No,
yeah.
the dollar is just. I mean, you look at we just have this huge amount of debt,
Mhm.
and how are they going to pay it off? And so interest rates are just going to go up. And so, but then the problem is U.S. has so much debt, and most of it's in short-term treasuries, which means they have to turn it over. Like they got to turn over something like 10 trillion, $11 trillion in treasuries this year, from an average of 2% to something like 4.5%.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they're getting to a point where the interest payment on the treasuries will exceed the tax payments off the American population, and then you've got a problem. And that's a more structural problem, which is built up over over many years.
But they're
And,
saying that they'll revalue the gold that's already on the books.
oh,
It's on the books for $42 an ounce. And if they revalue it at, even if they put it at $4,000 an ounce, it's something like if they take the existing, what they believe to be there between Fort Knox and Denver or whatever,
yep,
and revalue it at like 4,000 or 4,001, that could wipe out the debt. And it doesn't do much for gold holders. I mean, it puts you up
yeah,
to 4,000 versus 3,000, but it, in essence, wipes out the debt of the U.S. Deficit, and then kind of gets a new fresh start.
yeah, but they
It
still.
would tick up silver like crazy, I would
Oh
think.
yeah, silver will go up, but they haven't been into the vaults of Fort Knox yet, have they?
They haven't. Yeah.
Oops, is there anything in there? Why are they taking their
Well,
time?
then they'll release the Epstein files, really, because
Yeah, they haven't released the Epstein files either, and the John F. Kennedy files, the ones that Judge Napolitano talked about, that Trump had seen, that hasn't come out either. So
yeah,
there's a feet dragging here or whatever it is. So
something.
more
Yeah.
more to come. I'm sure it's only been almost 3 months now, but people are starting to wanting, if you make promises, you better keep them. That's all I have to say.
I think so too, or that could really end badly. And that is, starting to be like, well, how long is this going to be? Because we heard day one, and now it's, well, oh, well, that's because it's her job. And then she's saying, well, that's because I need something from him. And then, the finger pointing starts.
Oh
But
yeah, that starts. But I actually have it somewhere stored away in my databases. But I had the thing that this one company made tungsten blanks. Tungsten is exactly the same density as gold. So, and they shipped something like 4.2 million of those blanks to Fort Knox. And all they'd have to do is just electroplate them, and it looked just like a gold. They better drill those bars. That's all I have to say, because they actually had some U.S. gold bars come out, and they were sold into the Chinese market. And when the Chinese examined them and drilled them, they were tungsten. So yeah, I don't know. We're going to find out. That's going to be if it is. I mean, will they tell us? And because sure, it'd be a hell of a shock on the market if all of a sudden there wasn't as much gold in Fort Knox as they say there was.
Well, I saw a little, I don't know, news story or something that in China, that the way they price gold, like you can go into a jewelry store and they melt it down in front of you. And the way they price it is that there's a certain like market price for gold, and then plus the labor charge. And that's how you buy jewelry or gold there, so that you're getting real gold plus your labor charge. And because there's so much fake gold and
Oh yeah,
out
that's always a problem in China. Fake
yeah.
things.
So
So
yeah, it was
but
really
it's we'll see. That's coming up, and yeah, they had some other good speakers there at the conference. JC, of course, talked on
yeah.
his things. He was the kind of the MC more.
Yeah.
And then they
Well,
had
Jay Widener's message was, of course, I'm a huge Jay Widener fan, so I was geeking out, and then I was nervous to ask him a question, and I like stumbled all over myself, and then he was like, "No, we're in the 3D," and I was like, crushed. But
Jay has he's been doing stuff. Well, his two movies, his JFK movie, and then his Clockwork Shining, where he has Stanley Kubrick's. Stanley Kubrick put a lot of like hidden messages in his shows, in his films, and he put a little too much in Eyes Wide Shut. That's why he died. They killed him and then they cut out 25 minutes of the film, and nobody knows. That's why Eyes Wide Shut is such a bad film, It's because
Mm,
it's so disjointed, because they cut so much out of it that was a little too revealing, that it just doesn't flow anymore.
interesting. That makes sense, though. Yeah, I had heard that all the Kubrick films, so they end with a song, and then the next song,
Mhm,
the next movie and series starts with
mhm,
that song,
mhm.
and that's one of his tells. Um, and that they're all very
Yeah.
cryptic and whatever. Yeah, so that was interesting. Well, so I had been doing a series with a friend of mine on one of my shows talking about the missing Malaysian plane and the plasma orbs that
Mhm.
were seen around, and we were talking about you know that the theory that we were exploring was it a military op because there were scientists on the plane with equipment and whatever, and was it a military op to disappear them, um, because and they got sent like through a time warp thing because those plasma balls you can see them moving around and then they start going in like a pattern and then that plane's disappeared. And so we were thinking, like, I watched this movie Interstellar, and it
Yeah.
talks about the plasma, you know,
Mhm.
portal thing. And so I was trying to explain this to Jay in front of 300 something people and super nervous and whatever. And I was like, oh, are we escaping the 4D that we're in now? Because, 4D includes
Yeah.
time. And then we're going to jump to the 5D through the plasma orb thing. And he was like, silly girl, we're in that 3D. Anyway, I needed more time to explain my thought process to him. But I loved his talk about all the plasma that we're in and how we've been, the truth about all that has been obfuscated from us.
Yeah, Trevor James Constable is a friend of mine, and Jay talked a little bit about him. He was the original guy that did that back in the late 50s. They
Okay.
Live in the Sky, The Cosmic Pulse of Life, a
Okay.
few others. So I knew him, and I had some of the original footage and stuff that he had, and he would make these etheric rain engineering devices, and we could modify the weather, but by messing with the energies of the planet, it would attract these opt beings, or these creatures. They're like life forms, and you could see them on infrared, and you could see them on UV film, but you couldn't see them physically on a regular vision, that
Okay.
you see. And so he had a whole bunch of cool stuff like that, and then other stuff that has never been released. I
Was
saw.
that kind of like Uncle Cliff talks about when his dad was in the military and they used to have the different night vision goggles, the
Yes.
red ones, not the green ones, and that he was able to see those
Yeah.
beings, you know,
Yeah, these creatures, that there's entities that live alongside us. They're like plasma beings.
plasma beings. Yeah.
So they're not like they're there, but they're not solid like us. And then there's the same thing with those the tether incident outside the space shuttle. You've probably seen that, where
Tether.
the tether, the space shuttle was dragging they were doing this experiment. If you drag a wire through a magnetic field, it creates a current. Well,
Okay.
the current they created was way too strong, and it actually shorted out the connection to the space shuttle. So this tether went out into space and was like bobbling around and stuff, and all these translucent plasma creatures came. Check it out. It's a classic. If you just type, anybody type it in, type the tether incident space shuttle on YouTube or on the web, and you can probably there's so many out there that it will link.
And so, like, it created a frequency that they were able to attach to.
Yeah, they just were attracted, so they were all flying around. You could see these like translucent pulsing things going in front of the tether, behind the tether, because the tether was just kind of floating in space, going wobbling back and forth and making an electric current, which makes magnetic fields, which
Okay.
then would like disturb the space, and so these creatures were attracted to that
That
dis-
disturbance.
disturbance in the force. And so it's a classic one. But
Yeah.
they've seen those same pulsing kind of space plankton stuff before, with all those pictures in the space shuttle and space
Hmm.
station. They see these weird things coming to view. Sometimes they cut the film in time, sometimes they don't. People see them. So
Interesting. What are your thoughts on like the moon?
It's there,
That's a very broad.
and it's been there for a very long time.
Mhm.
Because that's what my thesis was on
Oh,
the
really?
retention of magnetic fields through rotating terrestrial planets through the actions of a close large orbital partner. Basically, the Earth pulls the inner core, the Moon pulls the inner core of the Earth off center from the rest of the Earth, and
Okay.
because the Earth is rotates faster than the Moon orbits, it actually causes the inner core of the Earth to rotate faster than the rest of the planet, which makes like friction and currents that make the Earth's magnetic field and keep us geologically
Interesting.
active. And I
Okay.
actually predicted that before it was actually discovered. So I was
Interesting.
anyway. So that was something I had done. So it's there, but yeah, they still can't do gravity right on the moon. That's another thing. That's one of the things I had been talking about lately. Uh,
Okay.
I don't want to go too much off on off tangent here. Hang on a second.
Oh, no, no, you're good. You're good. You might be bringing us back something.
Sort of, yeah. Well, anyway, yeah. I actually that last year, 5 space probes were sent to the moon, and only one landed successfully, and that was the one that was using our mathematics. We call it the new gravitational formulations, but mostly it's just a matter of perspective. And like our Earth spins, right? It's a sphere and it spins and it kind of bulges out in the middle because the force of it spinning, and so it's actually shorter across the poles than across the equator. And it's called an oblate spheroid. And we put a north pole and a south pole on the rotational axis, and that's smart. That's the way it's supposed to be. But when we went to the moon, we put the north and the south pole just kind of like it was on Earth. But the moon doesn't rotate. Well, it does one rotation with one orbit, and actually it's kind of distorted. The moon kind of looks like an egg shape. If
Oh,
we, if we can
okay.
imagine it now, this is vastly exaggerated, right?
Sure.
It's actually like an egg shape. But what we do is we only see we just see the part of the moon that faces us. So it looks long. If you took an egg, right, and you look at the downside of the egg, the big fat part, it looks like round. But actually, if you were in orbit and you were to be on the side of the moon, it's actually kind of, this is where the Earth would be, and the moon's actually kind of egg shaped with the bigger bulge pointing toward the Earth and the smaller part, on the back. So if you were in orbit, it's kind of hard to see. It's only like about a kilometer difference, but your sensors could easily pick it up. So when you want to do a pole on the moon, you actually do it differently. You put the point of the moon closest to the Earth. That's called the near Earth pole. And then, of course, the point farthest from the Earth, that would be the far point pole. And actually, the rim we see from the Earth, this rim is actually the equator. And then, of course, from there, we go, we put all the latitudes and longitudes. And so when they were trying to land at the moon's south pole, because there might be water ice in the shadows there, it was actually the lower equatorial quadrant. And actually, because the moon is longer between the poles, the near Earth pole and the far Earth pole, and shorter across the equator, its equator, which is actually the rim we see from the Earth, gravity is a little bit higher there. And that's why all those spacecraft crashed. Like they just did one this year. They sent one. It was called Innovative Machines, spent a lunar probe, and it crashed on its side. So what's happening is let's say we imagine we have a space probe here. It's going to land, right?
Okay.
You want to make sure that your vertical and horizontal are exactly zero when you land, right? That's what you want to do. And then it does it. Well, if gravity is higher, you have radar altimeters that tell you how far from the ground you are.
Hmm.
But there's nothing to adjust your horizontal. So if gravity is heavier, what happens is you can adjust the horizontal, but the vertical, but you come in with still a little bit of action on the horizontal, and so it just fell on its side.
Uh-huh.
So that's like the Japanese probe it actually ended upside down. Innovative Machines sent one last year, it crashed on its side. It sent one this year, it crashed on its side. The Russians crashed their probe before they get there, and iSpace, which was a Japanese company, that's where this all got invited. They actually crashed their probe on the moon because they couldn't calculate gravity right, and that was last year. They're going to try it again this year. Actually, they're a Japanese private company, but they're kind of associated with the government. And I went looking. I was going to tell them this information, and lo and behold, I go to I find out their headquarters is 10 miles from here. at Centennial Airport, because I live in Colorado, Denver
Yeah.
area.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
so they want to probably get a little bit of money off the U.S. military industrial complex in Colorado Springs. So
Mhm.
that's Centennial is probably the closest private airport you can get to. So they were there. So anyway, I gave them the information, but during the research, I discovered that the Chinese were about to land. I know the Indians were about to land Chandra 3 on the moon. The moon. That's there. They had Chandra 2 had crashed, and Chandra 3 was coming. But we had friends that were in the military and Indian Industrial Space Complex. So we managed to get the information to the Indians before they launched their probe, so they could adjust gravity to be correct, and so they were able to land on the moon.
That
And
makes so much sense about the poles and
yeah,
equating gravity in with it, knowing that the pole is
yeah,
towards the
you just
core of
got to
the
do
Earth.
it. Yeah, you just got to. You got the moon's like shaped like an oblate. It's a prolate spheroid, and the Earth's an oblate spheroid, so it's totally different. You just got to map it different and throw in our math, and then you can land. It's just that's why so many crashed. And they did have that blue ghost land. It was like a 19 degrees latitude. It almost tipped over. If you look at the things, you can see it goes, woo, it almost tipped over. But they had a much wider, they still came down a little bit, with a little bit of horizontal, but they had a much wider base than innovative machines. So they kind of wobbled around. You can see them wobble around on the landing, but they didn't tip over, thankfully. So that at least that one did. But that's why they crash so many space probes. You just got to get, it's real simple. It's just getting the shape of the moon right and understanding how gravity is going to act there, but rather than just imitating, because the moon
What
is not like
the
the
Earth
Earth.
is doing. Yeah.
Yeah, the Earth works great on the Earth, doesn't going to work on the moon. So anyway, that's neither here nor there. But that is my thing. But yeah, the moon's around. It's been there a long time. There's obviously some ruins on it. They had I knew Jose Escamilla. He did a book. Let me see, Moon Rising, I believe that was a video he did. And when they went to Clementine, was one of the original spacecraft mapping missions where they took photos of the moon. And then when they had to airbrush out all this stuff. There's whole stories about it. But what they hired these airbrushers, so what they did is they just airbrushed out the building. So you see like the clear moon, and then there's a square that's clearly been airbrushed, or
Blue.
there's a dome that's clearly been airbrushed. They didn't understand blending, right? They didn't do any blending. They just brushed it out, and they left the silhouette of what they brushed out. It was just ridiculous.
It's kind of
But
what they did with Obama's birth certificate. It's like now the
oh yeah,
technology has caught up, and now Photoshop is
yeah.
like on everybody's computer, and you can just kind of pull the pieces off, and it's really obvious.
Yes, it is, and so it's just one of those things. It was kind of amusing, and so yeah, he called it moon rising. But yeah, there's all kinds of there's some evidence there's still activity going on there. Bruce knows all, or Bruce sees
Yeah,
all. I
I,
remember him. He got
yeah.
he died unexpectedly. He had like a 20-inch telescope, 22-inch telescope, but he was always filming the moon, and he filmed all kinds of large objects flying around the moon and lights and other strange things. There's a little thunder outside, huh?
Oh.
Happening on the moon, and then he mysteriously died, and so anyway, yeah,
Do
they don't
you?
like.
I had a question come in. Do you subscribe to or have any thoughts about the whole thing about JFK getting information about wars on the moon, or any of that storyline?
About that, certainly there was alien presences. That, in fact, that's one of the reasons that they JFK might have got assassinated. There's the dark journalist, and he goes on that JFK was going to give the UFO file to the Soviets because they didn't want the UFOs flying over the Soviet Union, and then they mistake them for like U.S. missiles or something, and they launch a nuclear war because some of these weird spacecraft are flying around in the atmosphere. So he wanted to make something because so that wouldn't happen. And I guess a lot of the powers that be didn't like dealing with the Russians, the Soviets at that time, giving that information away, and that's one of the reasons they whacked him. Of course, he started printing U.S. currency, silver certificates, right, without backing, so that pisses off the Federal Reserve and the Rothschild banking dynasty, and then he was, he got the mob angry, and
He also called out the Zionists.
yeah, he
You
tried
know,
to shut down the atomic program in Israel, and that didn't make them happy. So he pissed off a lot of people.
yeah.
And I don't know if they all got together and whacked him or whatever, but yeah, he just pushed too many buttons there, and the deep state. It's the same with Kennedy. I mean, no, I mean with Nixon, they found out now that like Woodward, the reporter that busted it, he'd only been a reporter for like a month or two. He was actually a naval intelligence officer. And then the guys that gave him the information, he was also he was also I guess you'd say a spy, right? An intelligence agency spy. And then the four burglars that mess it up, they were CIA guys. They set Nixon up. He was the most popular president ever elected by things, and they got rid of him in 2 years because he wouldn't go along with their plans, right? He shut down Vietnam. He wasn't going to do this and that. So the whole Watergate was nothing but an intelligence agency setup to get rid of the most popular president in at least by election that we ever had. And all the stuff they told you about Nixon was nothing but lies. It was just a setup.
Well,
You know,
and wasn't that
yeah. At least they didn't kill him like they did Kennedy. I guess that would be too much. But they whacked Kennedy, then they whacked his brother. They took out Martin Luther King. They did all of these. And it wasn't lone gunmen doing it. It's just so ridiculous that anyone believes that.
No. And now in the CIA documents, they're saying that it was directed by Israeli Mossad, whatever. I mean, but then that's even coming from CIA documents. So it's like, well, are you supposed to believe?
Well, it looks, I think pretty much it shows the CIA was the main ones that did the organizing because, it's one thing. It's once the thing, it's another thing to cover it up. And who was running the media? I mean, the CIA, like calling Walter Cronkite, the most trusted man in America, they'll find out that every single one of the news people and the news agencies was all on the CIA's take.
Right.
And the guys, of course, that run the CIA's, it's a Wall Street white shoe boy firm. The CIA was created by Wall Street law firms. It has nothing to do with the U.S. government. It's never been a U.S. government agency. It's sort of independent, like the Federal Reserve, and it's basically an enforcement arm of Wall Street, despite what people may tell you.
To manage all of us, yes.
Yes.
With the one big bank account that we're finding out about.
Yeah, well, no, 14 magic computers.
Yeah,
Money out of thin air. Dang, why did they make 15 of them and give me one?
Oh, no. There's just more and more stories of that, every day. Now they're saying that they've been giving FHA loans to illegal immigrants. And I guess Jackson Hewitt was caught today or yesterday, I don't know, in the last couple of days, trying to hand out tax forms to get outside one of those hotels where all the illegals are staying on our dime, telling them that they can get anywhere from $12,000 to $14,000 filing, depending on how many children they have.
Oh yeah,
file, get our tax money.
Oh yeah, it's and now all those. How about those Social Security? They had like a 300-year-old person. Come on, what's going with that? That's ridiculous. You can't have millions of people that hundreds of thousands of people like 200 years old. I mean, some of that stuff was older than the country. It's just ridiculous. And then somebody was probably draining money off those accounts and putting it in their pocket. And then we're just finding more and more fraud in the Medicare system and Medicaid system. It's just Doge. I mean, there's just no way. I mean, with the AI now, you're just never going to get away with the graft and corruption that people used to get away, because that AI can just put all the parts together so rapidly that it just basically exposes whatever graft you're going to do. Just like they can't do those false flags anymore, like Boston or some of these other places. They try to pull a fast one on people, and they got 100,000 eyes on it with doing research, and they just blow the false flag right apart immediately. So
that's a really positive way to look at it, because so many people are afraid of how quickly technology is growing. I hear people being afraid of AI and having so much fear, and I'm like, it's made from what we're putting out there. And so to me, it's, you can use a tool, you can use a match to, burn down a house, but it can also keep you warm, and so if we can use these things to improve our lives, and like you said, stop these false flags and call out the corruption and all of that, I think it's a great thing.
Oh yeah, and it's just, basically we could just replace all of Congress with a bunch of AIs and we get a much better deal done, because they just not, there's just so much graft and corruption, and they're just it's just going to keep more and more and more, and that's what Cliff High and those other people talk about. the future for all of this stuff is just going to come out. There's just no way they can hold on and they can keep hiding it. They can keep shorting silver. They can keep doing all this other stuff. But they're fighting a losing battle here. And eventually it's all going to come out. I mean, that's one of the things with AI. We're all going to lose privacy, the good people and the bad people. And so whatever people have been doing, you're going to be able to see. And that's just the way it's going to be.
So that was one of the things I talked about in my little presentation, was having Bitcoin does bring transparency, which is a double-edged sword. With Litecoin, you have transparency, but you can have privacy. You can have, writing a check kind of transaction. If you want to buy a car, you need to document something, but then you can have privacy, like a cash transaction. If I want to give a family member cash or something that, doesn't need to be the world's business and that kind of thing. And I really tried to push the message about centralized versus decentralized or distributed, not even decentralized, but pushing that distributed, and how important it is that we use distributed methods.
Yeah, because you got to worry about things like Tether and all these other stable coins. I mean, they say for every coin that they have that they lay off, that they take a dollar and buy a U.S. Treasury, right, to back it up. And there's some question if that's happening. But then we also know they're taking those U.S. Treasuries and they're loaning them out to people to play in the derivatives market. Right. One day that might come back. So basically, that's like what the people have always told you. I mean, any of these guys out there, if you don't have the coin in your own possession, you don't own it. And so if you got your coin parked in Tether and thinking that, that could just, and because there's a lot of, they don't have any proper accounting rules. They got banned in the EU because the EU couldn't see what was going on inside. So they said no, and there is some shenanigans. You have all the piles of billions of dollars. Whoa, how much is going out the back door? We already did. Who was that one group that went down in the Bahamas? I can't remember their name at the moment. They threw the guy in jail. It was one of those ridiculous crypto group.
The FTX group.
Yeah. I think that's. Yeah, so I mean, I would stay away from stable coins. I know the U.S. government's promoting that for using dollar use around the world, but
Japan just, gave the nod to Circle, the USDC. It's probably not USDC. It's probably like a Japanese Circle coin. I don't know what the ticker is for it, but it's Circle.
Yeah, but do you want to have your dollar? Do you want to have your coin linked to the U.S. dollar? I mean, that's the whole reason you want to get into silver or, crypto of any type, Litecoin or Bitcoin or these other coins, is because, and it's not fiat currencies are okay, but a debt-based fiat currency is always going to collapse. I mean, a debt-based fiat currency, it's just a big Ponzi scheme, and eventually it collapses. They make a new one, right? Absolutely. So now the whole point of having crypto is to be out of, debt-based fiat fraud. I mean, so I just can't see stable coins as being a rational thing to hold, but people do. And by the way, I'm not a financial advisor, and I can.
Nor am I. Yeah.
So just put it, put our advice where it is, but use your own mind. Be your second and third opinion. Yeah. Just think about it. It's pretty obvious.
It's an exciting time to be in, though, that there are these opportunities for people to, to be able to take your energy out of that corrupt system. And that I think about before 2008, before Bitcoin, when that crash happened then, and there wasn't a place for people to go other than gold and silver, and then that's so clunky. And then you think about when, they made owning gold illegal. And so you're just kind of in a rock and a hard place. Like, where do you go? How do you?
Oh, yeah. And the other thing I noticed, is a lot of times now, a lot of the cryptos, especially Bitcoin, tends to follow, stocks, the price of equities. And I think part of that is because they have all those electronically traded funds, right? ETFs are holding all this Bitcoin. And you got to wonder if they're like naked shorting it and doing all that other stuff. So that's another thing, that's kind of what the whole, it's kind of a way that they got, how they got silver and gold under control by naked shorting and putting them as commodities.
Right.
And they kind of did that with Bitcoin with these ETFs. And so I don't really like that because it kind of takes Bitcoin's, autonomy away or its independence. And so whenever the market crashes, Bitcoin crashes because they have all these ETFs, which have all these Bitcoin. And so people get panicked and then they sell, and then there's a whole anyway. That's
Well,
just that's
and
another thing. I mean, you don't want to you don't want to tie your lifeboat to the sinking ship. You
yeah,
want your lifeboat away from the sinking ship.
that's right.
And,
And there's still the issue of Satoshi's wallet out there that people don't really want to talk about, but that's a real thing. That is a big chunk of centralized coins that nobody really knows who's holding that, and they
well,
could be dumped at any moment.
well, SEA's I think it's SEA 256 is the encryption code that they put
Shaw.
on that, and that comes right out of the National Security Agency. So it's probably a bunch of national security guys have that wallet, and they're just sitting on like a gazillion of gobs and gobs of Bitcoin on 1.8 million or something, whatever it is, and it's those guys, the guys that made it. They're the ones that got for free or for infant amount, and they're just sitting. They'd like to cash out and do stuff. There's maybe something to do with the Trump, making a Bitcoin reserve, but they were going to do that, but now they said that they're not actually going to go out and buy Bitcoin because technically, as president, he cannot buy Bitcoin. Only Congress can buy Bitcoin because Congress is the one that sets the budgets. So what they do is anything Bitcoin they confiscate, they're putting into this fund or any other coins, but they can't. But no, Trump doesn't have the power to go create a Bitcoin reserve, and so that kind of people were So we'll see.
Which makes sense why they chose the coins that they said they were going to use for the Bitcoin reserve. It's stuff they've confiscated.
Yeah, exactly. And I have a certain leaning for Monero. There's Pirate Bay and all these other privacy currencies that really that's what crypto is supposed to be: privacy currency that nobody knows what you're supposed to be doing. And so you can go anywhere with your privacy, with your crypto, anywhere in the world, and use it to get the stuff you need, and nobody can track what you're doing. So it's kind of like, and there'll be more. It's the same way with YouTube. They started censoring YouTube, and then the next thing you know, all these other new tubes, we got Rumble, BitChute,
eLive.
Yeah, all of these things. And so you can't, you just can't, in the old days that we think you could monopoly control stuff is over. It's just not going to happen anymore because they'll just make, if you try to crush one, they'll just make 5 more. Good luck trying crushing them. It's like, whack-a-mole.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that. I feel like the human spirit, is pretty unbreakable. And we, the people around the world, have kind of had enough and said, it's time. And they crushed us down pretty low to where you don't have that much more to give up. And so then it's like, well, all right, let's go.
Yeah, exactly. So
what is you take from me?
Yeah,
So.
people want to be, people don't, our government's just being exposed, but then all of these governments are being exposed. I think the age of secrets is coming to an end now. And just the way, with AI and the rest of things and the internet, and, they just can't pull the things. They can't pull their false flags. The corruption is just coming out because there's just no way to hide it anymore. It's just not possible in this modern technical age.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's exciting. It's a really exciting time. And I appreciate people like you that will come on and just so bravely and honestly talk about, all this technology and all the knowledge that you share with everybody. It's just amazing. And I'm grateful to call you a friend. And I'm so glad that I got to run into you in Canada. And I guess we're looking forward to another possibility of meeting up again soon later this year. But
yes, I think they're going to pull another Beyond Mystic somewhere in Florida. So
okay.
it won't be so cold.
Texas or Florida.
Yeah, Ottawa in March is a little cool. It was actually warmer than normal, but
one day was really nice.
Yeah, it was. Yeah,
walked around and
wander around and look at where the Parliament of Canada.
Mm-hmm.
So they need to clean that place up. It's looking like a dump. They could wash the buildings down, do a little bit of, come on, guys. It's looking kind of sad.
Jenny said the same thing. She goes, "Why are the buildings so dirty?" And I said, "Girl, you just live in Florida. Everything's new and white and clean."
Go out and steam clean them. They have steam cleaners that clean the rock off. It looks bright and new and shiny. The same with DC. DC is looking all shabby. It's got like a kind of a brown, blackish stuff because little things grow on that stuff, like lichen and bacteria. So they just need to spray them off. It's like
a bunch of Satanists down there,
Yeah, we'd rather spend, $200 billion on Ukraine than actually make the
Well,
the
we
buildings look good and the electricity
yeah,
come and
we have to make sure
water.
that Chelsea had a nice wedding dress, you
That's
know?
right. Who cares
Very
about those
important.
people up in North Carolina where they're, where they don't have any houses anymore and
Yeah,
starving in the freezing weather?
yeah,
They don't count. We
no,
need to spend our money on important things. Yeah, like Chelsea's wedding. What
Chelsea's
could be
wedding.
more important than that?
Yeah, 84 million for
Yeah.
Chelsea's wedding.
Oh
Very,
God.
very important.
Oh, and okay, we paid for it. The U.S. taxpayer paid for
Yeah.
that. But then we found out a lot of that USAID stuff went here, there, and ended up in Chelsea's wedding and
Mhm.
in the pockets of the Clintons. Over why it's like Elizabeth Warren. She has a personal fortune of $67 million. Where did she get on a congresswoman's salary? She got it from you, American taxpayers.
Yes.
They
Yep.
just give it. The tax penny goes here, goes to this corporation, it gives it this corporation, gives it this thing. The next thing you know, it's in her pocket.
That's why I can't imagine that anyone would opt in this year.
Yeah,
I just can't imagine.
yeah. It's just
Can't even imagine. Like pound sand is what I would have to say. But anyway, well, once again, I appreciate you, and well, I'd love to do this again. We'll have to
Oh
like
yeah, let's
get
definitely
on
do
a
this again.
regular schedule and try to do this every once in a while because I just love picking your brain on all this stuff. But you guys, please check out their great skin care products and all the other great items. Once again, there's a lot of education and information. Go to shopc60.com. Use my promo code LTC Lisa, save a few bucks, and go visit all our friends over at C60 Purple Power. Take care.